first guest today. He is the voice of the Delaware Blue Hens. Pleased to be joined by Scott Klatzkin. Scott, great to have you on. And, let's talk about Jair Davis and this commitment, a guy that you saw, for 3 years at Delaware. He's coming here as a grad transfer. What can you tell us about Jair? What should SU fans expect out of him?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on. I'll be following closely, I guess, this season because I certainly will want to see how he's doing at Syracuse. You are getting just one of the best young men that have come through Delaware. A humble guy, raised well. That's all off-the-court stuff that's going to be such a bonus for the program, for the community. I mean, he has made our state, our program proud. We will miss him so much at Delaware. But you're going to heck of a basketball player, too. I mean, it's a guy that is a multi-dimensional scorer, can score inside, has one of the prettiest mid-range jump shots that you're going to see. Beautiful fadeaway, Jay. Improved his free throw shooting by 20% from junior to senior year, and is just a hard worker, a winner, a guy that won CAA tournament championship as a freshman. You're getting the real deal with Jair. We'll miss him for sure.
Now, Scott, Syracuse has a McDonald's All-American coming in Donnie Freeman, and it seems like there is a chance that Jair will be asked to come off the bench. Would that surprise you if he said yes to Syracuse for a sixth man job, or do you think he's coming here with the thought that he is going to be a starter and play a lot of minutes?
He's a competitor, and I don't know all the ins and outs of the portal and where else he visited. But if there is a battle for a starting spot, it's not going to be one that I think Jair's not up for that battle. And I think the way college basketball is going now, there's room for that veteran senior, that grad transfer to be the starter, and maybe it allows the freshman to grow a little bit into the position late into the year. I think you go 10 years ago or even 6 years ago, these teams were loaded up with freshman stud All-American players, and that's what you threw out there. But you're seeing more teams go to the veteran players to be their leaders, and I think that's probably what interested Syracuse in Jair, is to bring that grad transfer, that 4 years of experience into, I would think, a starting role, but certainly he can also play multiple positions. So I'm not too familiar with your lineup or exactly how you'll play these guys, but if there's a competition, he'll be up for it.
I like the fact you just said he's versatile. We were kind of surmising whether or not he'd be able to play the 3 and the 4, or if he's strictly a power forward. It sounds like, you said he's got some versatility there. You talked about his mid-range game. What about his three-point shot? I know percentage-wise it wasn't really there. Is that something that he's working on that could be part of his game moving forward, or is he a guy that, Syracuse fans really shouldn't count on outside of like 15 feet?
Yeah, I don't know if three-point shooting is going to be what he's bringing to Syracuse. It's something that he worked on from his sophomore year to his junior year and then into his fourth season, or third with Delaware, fourth overall in college. But it's a good-looking shot, and you'll see that at his high free throw shooting form. I mean, he shoots the same way from the free throw line as he does everywhere else. But it didn't translate to a lot of makes from three-point range. Sometimes he would make the first, and we say, all right, here we go. And then, he'd be 1 for 4 or 1 for 5 in a game. He is not seeking out that three-point shot. I think sometimes he was left alone and gave it a try. He had the ultimate green light at Delaware, and the percentage-wise, you'll see in the numbers, not exactly a three-point shooter. Something that he has a full offseason to add, and I'm sure he'll be working on that as he did his free throw shooting. But as of this season, I would not put that in his range of great skill sets that he has.
At the top of the show, Paulie asked the question, my co-host here, about, who's going to be the leader of this team next year. And with the transfer portal, you seldom see guys who are in a program for 3-4 years. And so your leaders sometimes are new players. You spoke a little bit about the off-the-court qualities that he brings to the table. Could you see Jair Davis, walking in here and being one of the leaders of this team next year?
He is a leader, and Delaware does not win a CAA championship. They don't go to the NCAA tournament in 2022 if it wasn't for him stepping in and as a freshman and leading this team to victory in that regard. He's not a guy that's going to come in and start yelling at people at the start. He's not the most vocal in that aspect. he leads by example, and he's a guy that I think can turn to as a veteran, and the team can follow his lead on the floor. How hard does he work? What's he doing in the off season? What's he doing at practice? What's he doing on the floor? He's not the most vocal guy, but I'm sure that's something that he could improve on as well. He's a winner, and he has a winning pedigree, and that's certainly what he's going to be adding. I think he'll lead by example if that's what you guys need.
You mentioned he improved his foul shooting. I'm looking at his stats, and is he a guy who tends to draw fouls? Because when I'm looking at his stats and he's getting 29 points, he's getting to the foul line 12 times, 13 times a game in those games.
Yeah, he was a guy. I mean, we would run the same play to start the game every game. And I talked to Coach Inglesby, who's a heck of a coach and recruiter at Delaware, and I'm sure had some great games at Notre Dame versus Syracuse as well. But I talked to him on the pregame interview, and he said, well, first play, we're going to Jai on the block, and we'll see how they defend it. If they double, that's how we'll run our offense. If they don't double, those teams were in for a long day. Anytime he was not getting doubled on the block, you get him on that left block, he gets that left shoulder, and then he can fade or go to his right hand off that left block. He was going to get fouled or he was going to score. And now that is in the CAA where maybe they're not as big of players, and he can be one of the bigger fours or a versatile four and have some mismatches in this league. So he would draw fouls on the block for the most part, not necessarily by driving, but he's a guy that does get to the free throw line in our league. Now, how does it all translate to the ACC? I'm not sure, but he'll find a way, I'm sure, to get to the stripe. And when he does, he shot at above 80%.
That's what a lot of fans want to know. How will it translate to the ACC? What do you say to fans who look at it and say, well, he just went to Delaware, or in the case of Dakota LaFew, who Syracuse is looking at as well at the point guard position, he just went to Mount St. Mary's. You covering, this league with Delaware. I mean, what do you say to fans who, are skeptical, I guess, about a guy making that jump to the Power Five?
Yeah, I would say, unfortunately, we have too many examples at Delaware as to why it works. We had 4 former players play postseason basketball this season, 3 in the NCAA tournament. I mean, you guys have seen players come to the ACC from Delaware, unfortunately for us, but, Justin Mutz was one of our guys. He led Virginia Tech, I believe, the ACC championship. I think he had a triple-double against Syracuse a couple of years back. Jameer Nelson Jr., I think, would have been player of the year in the CAA this season had he not transferred to a TCU team that was an NCAA tournament team and played point guard there. Another ACC guy in Andrew Carr was part of the 2022 championship team that we had with a front court of Jair Davis and Andrew Carr in 2022. He had a great season at Wake Forest. I think he's now in the transfer portal again. Ithiel Horton went to Pittsburgh, started at Texas, another guy that unfortunately has transferred from Delaware. And you look at the Final Four. Aaron Estrada is a guy that played in the Final Four from Alabama out of the CAA from Hofstra. Walker from Michigan State started at Northeastern in our league, had a great career there. So there's players all over the country. Unfortunately, when you're at a mid-major, you succeed in these larger schools, see how good you are, and they kind of pluck you. It's almost like a minor league system for the power schools, and that's just kind of the way it is. But there are so many examples of players coming from mid-majors, not just Delaware, and rising to the occasion as they go to a higher conference.
How does a school like Delaware view the portal? Because, in a Power 5 school, I think everybody kind of laments the fact that, you're going to lose some of your players, but you can easily go in the portal and get others. I would imagine it's not as easy for a school like Delaware when you lose, a Jair Davis, for instance, to replace him in the portal. How do the lower-level coaches view the portal?
I'm sure it's a nightmare. I'm sure it's an absolute nightmare to every season have to rebuild your team from really the ground up. I mean, I mentioned all those players that I mentioned that has transferred and had success elsewhere started at Delaware. And, Nelson, I think, would have been the CAA Player of the Year in the preseason. Coming into last year, I think Jair Davis certainly would have had a shot at those accolades had he stayed at Delaware. We're not the only team going through it. But now it's not a matter of are we losing players because they want to improve their game somewhere else. Jair Davis loves Delaware, but you can't blame a kid, and I don't know what type of package he got from Syracuse, but I'm sure there was money involved for him to go to another school. Now it's a matter of, can we afford other players? What players can we buy to come to the program? And I'm not in the mix with all of that, but from an outsider looking in, it's got to be just so different than when even a decade ago in mid-major basketball, when you try to build your program and maybe you get a guy that was underlooked, you build him up and build your program that way. Now we lost another player that could have been 18-point per game scorer next season, and he's gone too. So it's guys are getting deals and they're getting money from other schools. You can't blame any of these kids for leaving and getting opportunity to earn some money somewhere else. But for the mid-majors that don't have as much money, it is absolutely very difficult.
Yeah, well said, Scott. And really good insight. Anything about Jair that we didn't touch on that you think is important for our listeners to hear?
I will say this. He went to Sanford High School in Delaware. The last time Syracuse had a player from Sanford High School in Delaware, Trevor Cooney, he went to the Final Four twice in 4 years. So expectations should be very high with Jair coming in.
And apparently they had a recorded message from Trevor Cooney for Jair Davis when he arrived. So that's right. Same high school as Trevor Cooney. Yeah, they played that connection to their advantage. Listen, Scott, great insight. Really appreciate you coming on. Thanks so much for doing it for us, and hopefully our paths cross again down the road.
Thank you so much.
All right, Scott Klatzkin, the voice of the Delaware Blue Hens, and with that,
hopefully he's not as polarizing
as Trevor. Yes, I didn't want to get into that with Scott, but I mean, Trevor Cooney had a great career here.
He sure
not
did.
a good career. He had a great career here. Boo, boo.
Sorry.
And then I think the more that time goes on, the more you look back on it, and people can appreciate what a great career. Boo! Maybe someday they'll do the same with Joe Girardi.
Jordan likes my angry SU fan boo that I do.
All right.
I do it for him.
I know you were really looking forward to that segment. Do you feel better now about Jair Davis?
Yeah. I don't not feel good about it. I just don't know how to feel about it. I didn't say I felt bad. I just said I don't know how to
feel about it. Okay. Well, hopefully you feel a little bit better.
Because everybody keeps naming these players that did good, but how many players did we just fell into the abyss after they came to other
I'll
places?
say this though, Paulie. I think
you don't hear about those,
but there are plenty of examples of guys who went from Power 5 schools and maybe transferred down, and there are examples both ways. Guys work out. Some do, some don't. Look at the NFL draft. Again, I'm going to dial it back because it's on top of mind for me. You draft a quarterback in the first round. It's essentially a 50-50 proposition whether or not he's good or not in the NFL. It's, there are no guarantees. And I think there are plenty of examples of guys who have transferred up and have succeeded. There are certainly examples of guys who have transferred up and not panned out, just like there are McDonald's All-Americans that can come here and not pan out, or they can be really good. It's hit or miss, and that's the nature of recruiting.
Junkie Jawa says, great career, ? Great career, ? Legacy. Yeah, if you make 2 Final Fours, you've got a legacy at Syracuse.
Yeah. How Trevor Cooney doesn't get his just due, I don't understand.
All right, Mike McAllister's in our chat.
Yeah.
The world famous him. It's time for his favorite segment.
Is it really his favorite segment, or do you you're pretending?
No, it is.
I know it's your favorite segment.
We have an 8-9 matchup today, Steve, in the worst song bracket before we start talking Syracuse football and Tim Leonard talking lacrosse and all the other stuff.
All right, let's get
all the sports that you can handle.
Let's get to the bracket, and then Tim Leonard coming up at 1:00. Can I say who we have on tomorrow? Can I
Fran Brown.
Yeah, Fran Brown coming up tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. More details coming up.
I booked it.
Yeah, good job, Paulie. Good get. Back after this on ESPN Radio.